So during the Roman times, there were business districts in terms of how the Roman Empire was administering different parts of its empire, and they were communal office spaces overall. And what happened after the fall of the Roman Empire, the Middle Ages actually was quite interesting. Throw in a plague here and there, but a lot of people went back and worked from home actually. So a lot of shopkeepers lived literally above their shops, right? So that was the paradigm for many years in terms of how people worked. Clerks, shopkeepers all worked above their homes overall. And it wasn't until really we start hitting the 18th century that, with the expansion of like the British Empire and so forth, that the administrative offices started to come back into play in terms of where people actually went to a place for work. And then during that time as well is really the impact of technology. Let me grab my notes here a little bit. So during this time period in the 18th century, about the 1850s, the light bulb, the typewriter were all invented all at the same time. And so these really impacted the way we worked and also how long we worked in the office as well. Now, fast forwarding to more modern times here and the modern office. So Franklin Wright was actually the purveyor of the first open plan office building, the Larkin Administrative Office. And during that time period, building technologies were also advancing, right? We were building more vertically. Elevators were starting to come into play. And really at that point, the 5-day work week started to materialize. So in terms of the 5-day work week, it was actually started around 1908, where people didn't want to work on the Sabbath, right? Really the weekends, right? So the 5-day work week started to come to fruition around those times, and it was really normalized during the Great Depression when people were cutting back hours overall in terms of work. The Ford Motor Company adopted the 5-day work week in 1926. And then the Fair Labor Standards Act in 1940 codified a 5-day work week overall. And as we look at technology, 1951 is when the first business computers started to come into the workforce. So previously, computers were used for military purposes, science purposes, but in the early 1950s, it started to be introduced into the overall business economy. So for everyone here in the audience, do you guys know where your profession, the facilities management role, originated from?
Do you know when?
When?
Take a guess. Sometime between then and now. So you got a good chance.
Pretty close, yeah.
1960s?
So yes, actually it was in the 1960s. So this is a bit of trivia here. So some of you may remember Ross Perot, right? So his company, EDS, was the first to kind of use the term facilities management. And so it's really kind of that evolution of work and the advancements in computer technologies and so forth that really is the origins of your professions overall. In 1978, the Facilities Management Institute was formed. And really, what was happening was that with computerization came data. But also with that, in the 1970s, this is interesting, is that there was the energy crisis. And so part of the whole aspect of facilities management was about controlling costs, right? How can you manage energy use overall, and computers and that data set allowed that to happen.
So we want to engage with you guys a little bit. And what are some of the challenges? I'm sure there's none, right? What are some of the challenges you guys are experiencing today in a hybrid workplace? How many of you have operate a hybrid facility where employees have flexible schedules? Okay. So what are some of the challenges? You guys mind sharing? All right. Well, thank you guys for sharing. I mean, these are all important considerations. As you guys know, not one situation is the same, and that's part of the challenge. We were all office-centric before, where we could guarantee people in a certain amount of time, have more consistency. And in this change, that's making it even harder as the type work styles come into play. And some of you mentioned those. Thanks for sharing earlier. Those work styles are affecting how you're managing the facility.
Yeah. Yeah, and what we've been noticing and collecting are different personas of work styles that have evolved during the pandemic. And for us, looking pre-pandemic, it was a lot easier. You had the FTE, right, the full-time employee, and then maybe you had the part-time employee, but everyone pretty much had a desk, right? It's really easy to kind of figure out your operation requirements, your day-to-day needs, and so forth. But as we look at the current workplace, right, we have a lot of more different personas coming into play, right? You have the senior pace setters, right? These are the senior folks like, hey, I want everyone back at the office, but then they're not the ones back in the office themselves, right? That's a little bit of a challenge there, right? You have the all-weekers, right? I include the facilities managers into the all-weekers, and these are also folks that don't really want to work from home, right? They're tired of sitting at their kitchen table working. They really need the technology in the office, right? So they come in to work in the office. The 3-dayer, right? That's pretty common. The Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and then everyone's gone on Friday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and everyone's gone on Friday. But these are what I call my tactical folks, right? They come into the office for a particular purpose, right? They want to get work done, and so they come in to collaborate, to socialize, to really exchange information with their colleagues, and then the alternative hours, right? This one's been under the radar quite a bit, right? This is the parent that might, take their kid to school, wait until rush hour is over, right? And then drive in because it's faster, the commute's better, right? Get in around 9:30, 10 o'clock, right? And then maybe leave around 4 to go pick up the kids. But they sign back on and finish out their day in the evening remotely, right? So this happens quite a bit, but it's kind of a recognition that people need flexibility throughout their day. The on-demand kind of co-working type, these are probably your business development types, government affairs. They're out and about quite a bit, right? They touch down in the office when they need to exchange information. And one of my favorites is the social butterfly, right? They come into the office just to hang out. They're important to the culture of the organization, but for them, part of the work aspect is the exchange, the socialization, and the enjoyment of their coworkers. And then, then we have the true remote worker, right? These are the folks that don't ever step foot in the office at all. They're somewhere else in the country possibly, and then you kind of have the gig worker, right? So you've got these different personas all may be assigned to the location that you're at, right? And the challenge now is how do you operate a facility with all these different personas, versus your typical 1 or 2 types, full-time employee, part-time employee. So.
Yeah, and I think what becomes even more challenging, some of you guys have mentioned this, is they're asking you to, let's make people come back. How do we get them to come back? We really talk in terms of how do we get the office to earn the commute. And for employees, they've figured out a way to work remotely as successfully, or in their mind as successfully.
And part of this too, it's become a business question as well, right? I think some organizations has found out that certain aspects of their business actually work just fine remotely, right? And they're able to downsize. And then some others, which are, say, a apprenticeship model of work, right? If people aren't there, it's very hard to pass down that information and whatnot. So I think it does, demonstrate that it's not a one-size-kind-of-fits-all for all organizations, but everyone did get accelerated altogether in terms of remote working overall.
Yeah. And I think the point you're making, there's not an answer yet because we don't have precedents, but we have time. It takes 18 months for somebody to learn a new habit. Well, what did we learn during the pandemic? A new habit that we don't want to change. And so when someone is asking you to bring people back, or you're operating a facility, I think understanding that change isn't going to happen quick, which is frustrating to hear. But that's where really we're seeing a very big push. If you run multiple buildings, this happens in different ways versus if you're running a corporate office for someone. You, as a facility team, have become the agents of change. Now, that doesn't mean just moving things, changing objects, elements, adjusting the systems. You're a very big part fortunately and unfortunately at this moment, in people's psyche. Like, what's in it for me? It's like an elephant and a rider, and the elephant is that person's brain. And you know what? The rider's not going to be able to pull that elephant. They're going to have to convince them through positive change over time. And so depending on where your buildings are, in populations coming back, and or depending on where your company is, it's going to take time. And having similar names, similar titles to what you guys are used to, but having them at the table even earlier, or encouraging people to think about where you are well in advance, is really important. And I would say the three positions that have come to the top and can be great agents for you, depending, again, if you're operating multi-building, it might be a little bit different versus a corporate campus. The three are the HR person, the marketing communication person, and then the champions or change agents, change champions. The HR person, as you imagine, somebody says, we're gonna change. From the leadership team, they're really there to help not only communicate, but also educate. The last thing anybody coming back to the building wants to hear is come back, because they'd like to know why and how and what's going to happen. So they can be a really great advocate for you. This may be a little bit different if you're running multi-building, multi-site. That might come more from your overall team itself. Is like, what are the things that we can communicate and educate people along the way as to what we need. So in a multi-building site where you have multiple offices, you may bring those HR directors from the offices together, or along with their real estate team, to say, okay, how are you operating? What's happening? What can I communicate? Here's the downside, or here's the upside of our building. You want them to be comfortable, have easy access to everything, but I can't if I don't have this information. So use them as your advocate. They are a huge part. Change engagement. We like to say engagement versus management, because nobody likes to be managed. They'd rather be engaged. They can be a big advocate. And it's been a very important part of what we're seeing in multi-site, multi-location facilities. The other is the marketing and communications team. They're often going to deliver a message, but there also can be champions to help provide inspiration. In my building specifically, where I work in Midtown Atlanta, the communications and team for that facility, that overall management facility, has done a great job helping every office there build excitement, build information, build during times of change or transition in the facilities, give people comfort. And in the absence of information, someone will make up their own reality, and they'll be mad, no matter what you guys have done. So over-communicating is okay. They'll let you know if it's too much, but it's really best that you use that communication channel. We're finding a really positive way to calm what you can. If you can get 80% of the people on board, that's 100%, guys. Don't try to be 100% perfect. It's impossible. It just really is. And then the cheerleaders or the champions are really in a corporation. That would be often assigned from leadership or HR teams, where they're saying these are individuals who, they get it, you know, they're influencers, they are future leaders, they're individuals who we can educate as well and facilitate the message throughout. So they can be valuable to you in whoever is operating a corporate facility. Probably a little bit different if you're multi-tenant, multi-location site, but just think about that word champion. You can't do it all, so how do you provide, not spies, but it could be that as well, people that are embedded that can help deliver that message and make it easier. So being agents of change, bottom line, you are taking an HR role. And thank you, I don't know your name in the back, but you're having to listen to them when the item is lost. All those things are important, and empathize with that. So just know that this is a common thing, and these are some touch points that we feel like can help you. Any feedback? How are you guys engaging in different ways to help? Who are you bringing in to help you in this? Yeah.
It's not working, these lights are out, doors locked, but it's just a collaboration of effort from employees and the staff to get it done.
Yeah, no, great example.
Yeah.
And you're in your I don't know, what morning phase, whatever we want to call it with everyone. They're in the education phase. So how many months have you been into this so far?
So we started in 20, purple right now.
Yeah, and that's, once you've made it a great environment and or it's being reinforced, that's that next step. It's a great checkpoint to engage the the champion team. Again, not just with the survey, but what's happening, where do we adapt? Know that piloting is going to happen all the way throughout. Piloting doesn't mean it starts from scratch, but you're testing along the way, and that's frustrating, but it's good. Give yourself some grace because it's starting. You're further along, but keep that path. Employees that hear you communicate with them are going to be more likely, even if it's a complaint, at least you've resolved their complaint and it doesn't become a rumor and make it harder for you guys to manage. That's the biggest challenge we see when a facility team calls us. It's like, okay, everybody's upset about this, and it's, well, what's the reality? Let's get them back to reality and the why.
I was gonna say another challenge too of people like that making their own schedules when they decide to come in is from a safety and security standpoint. You know, if you have a fire or another disaster of some sort or whatever, I mean, like our company, we have a system where you're supposed to check in and like reserve a desk where people know where we is. And so I mean, if we had a fire, we might not know that somebody was on the fourth floor, let's say. In other words, if the fourth floor is totally empty and one person decided to come in, we had a fire, we might not know that they were there, you know what I mean, or something. Yeah. Or somebody had a medical emergency. That's the other challenge that you have, you know, because you're responsible, you know, facilities people for the safety and security.
Absolutely. Well, that's actually a great segue into data. Were you reading our slides?
No,
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Did somebody else raise their hand? Okay.
No. And thank you for sharing your story there in terms of the piloting, because I'm assuming you're also collecting data as you're going through, right? And I think that is really one of the key things for facilities managers is that, you know, what data do you need? What are you tracking overall? Right? You know, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. And really, you know, you really want, you know, data-driven decisions, right? That's going to make your leadership comfortable on making decisions moving forward with different policy changes, real estate decisions, and so on and so forth. So what other data are people collecting overall? Or what are you missing that you feel like you really need?
I guess the schedule, like, so if you have, in some scenarios, departments are setting their employee schedules for them.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not getting that influx of people coming in on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Scheduling, it kind of causes a group.
Right.
Because we don't, what is your maximum utilization day, what's your minimum?
Right, and then maybe the schedules don't overlap, you know, with other departments that maybe need to be in at the same time, or, you know, or the space is overutilized if they're overlapping. Yeah, we definitely see, you know, quite a bit in terms of, you know, schedule, data, unassigned space dilemma that I think everyone's trying to work through. I think many of our organizations that we work with are using you know, apps to reserve desks and so forth, but it's really making sure that people do use it so that they can collect good data in terms of the utilization rate for the different spaces. And really also, I think you touched on it as well, you know, with your pilot program is, you know, what kind of technology are people using now, right? You got rid of your desktops, you know, and so what happens then in terms of tracking the hardware, things of that nature, and then uniformity in terms of technology as well. I think that is another one that comes up quite a bit that we're trying to get more information on. Yes? Yes.
That education is important. We were working on
where I'm sitting that would accommodate my height, weight, something like that. So I look at that in my facility. And I can look at that.
Do you have sit stand desks?
And then they have to go contact me and tell me how to get on.
Now, are they assigned to that desk per se, or are they moving around?
They're assigned to it.
Okay.
And I think it's the training. Like we have the setup is being able to have training days for people to know how to quickly adjust the ergonomics has become a very popular part of the HR person's role. Setting up lunch and learns or videos of here's how you quickly set your monitor to the correct height. Here is the correct seated position. In general, it is a challenge when somebody comes in and out, and if they don't have an assigned desk, the ability to easily adjust. I mean, there are sensors that you can pre-code, or excuse me, sit-stand desks that you can pre-code to somebody's heights if they're sharing, but that becomes territorial if they're always sitting at that desk. I think you mentioned that. I think the other part of data, we are seeing that there is a greater technology, as you all know, has become one of the #1 investments through the pandemic, especially when you were desktop versus laptop. We are seeing more interest in investment in data that allows you guys to manage the facilities better. So it's a little bit harder when your mechanical systems, your operating systems are not there, but we're seeing more interest and more advancements in people considering that. So an example would be, many of you shared in different ways. You have a facility of 15 floors and you're using 3, but you're asked to, you have no data to know where somebody's going to sit. And so you operate the systems, you operate maintenance, you operate the dining facility the same way. Having data, we're seeing the leadership team being much more open to saying, give us the data, or maybe consolidate us down to a few floors so that we know we don't have to clean every floor every week. We don't have to operate the systems where we can on every floor. And we also know how much food or beverages to have in, or how much staff to have in. So that data is, in our mind, that's the questions, that's important because that's the questions we're getting asked even when we're designing facilities, is how is it going to help us know that quickly, and what can we do?
Yeah. Yeah, please.
So that I can see who called for what issues, and see if there's a trend in that one office always calling all the time. And if they have their own tickets that they perform, they know they're supposed to clean the coils and air conditioning, so I kind of look for that. So I get a monthly report from my contractor, see for my building, to see who's doing what and request what. And then I can have a conversation with them about what's going on, or allow them to make their own tickets versus coming to me. So this way I can collect real data versus seeing my name on all the tickets. And I already know that they don't. So I would collect that report. My contractor.
So, to our point, we use QR codes in our common spaces, and we have service request liaisons. Like, so for each department or floor, there's someone that is tasked with putting in those work orders. So you're not having everybody put it in, because it's hard for me to find John and you, but I know Kim's always looking there. But we use QR codes in our common spaces, like the hallways, elevators, restrooms, stairways, the section areas, because that might just not be dedicated to one person, but it also lets you know, like, the public people that are coming into space, they also have the ability to do that too. It just gives us a forecast, helps us with custodial, making sure that, like, the cleanliness and making sure stuff works.
That idea of a concierge, the digital concierge, is really prominent. We're all self-sufficient.
Tools, visuals, communication mechanisms, and getting them used to it, driving them back, getting your team driving back. That can help in a multi-tenant building. We're seeing a lot more in our building in particular. I operate in a facility that is hotel, 2 residential facilities, about 500,000 square feet of retail, and then 2 office towers. And so they operate the entire facility, and it's a 24/7 because they have a lot of transitions between the restaurants and other things that are happening. So it's a very complex facility, and I've noticed that they have used more simple things to teach us new habits, and it's been very beneficial, helping me break my personal habits for sure. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, great comments, everyone. So, as we look forward, though, right, what is the value of the office now? I think, the office was often the physical manifestation of an organization's success, right? When you had the whole building, you had the logo on the building, right? You had corner offices, right? Those were representations of a successful organization. Now, what is that, right? I think that's what many leaders and executives are really thinking about. What does that mean in terms of moving forward, where we have a hybrid schedule, we have people working remotely, and misaligned kind of objectives overall. And the reason we kind of wanted to go over the kind of the history of the office and work and the 5-day work week is that there's about 120 years of established behavior in terms of how the social economics work for the economy, right? And so that's something that we're kind of working against now is all the protocols, all the policies have been refined over generations for the 5-day work week, everyone in the office, right? Now that system is no longer there, so what do we do now, right? So one of the challenges is that hybrid work is not globally recognized. It's different in Europe, it's different in Asia, right? And so what are the alignments there in terms of an organization with multiple facilities, or if you have clients and customers that work, across multiple time zones and have different expectations of how work happens, and how do you operate that? And one of the things that we often have to say is that there is no silver bullet in terms of that new playbook, but that you really do kind of have to let go of some of the nostalgia I think a lot of organizations have in terms of what the office means to them, and establish kind of the new sets of values of what office and work mean to each organization overall. And it really does take a little bit more of a flexible and adaptable approach. I think technology will play a large part in that overall. But really, I think also data, right? I think collecting the data that you are now in terms of how people are working, where they're working, the things that they need are going to be important to set the playbook for the future.
So a little more questions. What do you guys feel like is attracting people back to the office or big office complexes today?
Connecting spaces. Rooftop space,
Ah.
fitness centers, conference spaces, cafes. People. I'm 48, but I have the soul of like a 78-year-old. So people now want to come to work, in their flip flops, sit on the couch with their laptop on their lap, have a cup of coffee, sit up and work on the roof deck. And so, for older buildings, like getting those spaces so they can compete with newer buildings when we design those spaces is really important. So we're investing a lot in that right now.
What feels like home.
Yeah, we have to compete with the environment that has it.
Great.
The other thing that I've noticed too is, and you all alluded to this, a lot of people who mostly telework will come in the office for collaboration type things. So I have seen a lot of offices, less workstation cubicles and more just like open areas or conference, you actually have some buildings with the whole floor is nothing but conference rooms, meeting rooms. And amenities, like you said, and stuff like that. You don't have any desks.
Anybody else seeing anything different?
I like it dim now because we've been working in my house. And all the LED lights are too bright for everybody.
There we go.
Fascinating.
So, that question for me is hilarious, because the only time people really want to come back in the office is if it's a all hands on deck meeting, right? Because they're gonna see everybody. They're really excited to be there that day, but if it's just a general day and they're just one of the days that come, nobody's excited about it. But as long as they're seeing their, I'll say their people, like office friends, the culture, as long as that's that day they can see everybody, they're happy about being in the office. But there's nothing, I wish I had a top there, but like there's nothing that we're doing different, because we're government, right? There's nothing that we're doing. We're offering these nice spaces, but we're not offering the amenities that they're really looking for to come back in. Because I had a list where they wanted, like all the things that you wouldn't do before COVID. So they wanted to know, where's our parking, Did you have parking before? Transportation, they want like shuttle services for like 2 blocks away, because nobody wants to move. They don't want to walk. Daycare, fully serviced breakfast bar and lunch bar. We should have like a bowl of candy and snacks, just stuff that we didn't normally do. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I mean, if we had it where we could serve everybody, that'd be great, but I can't individually adjust to whatever you have at home. Because like my office, when I do work home that one day out of 50 days, it's nice and comfortable, but I don't think everyone is consistent with getting work done in that environment. So like some of you can go home and everything's fine with work, be task oriented, but there's a lot of people that they're just so relaxed, they're too relaxed. When they come to office, they have to be on point. So,
I work at IIT, it's International Finance Corporation in DC, and so our clients are literally everyone from all over the world, and we just built out a wellness and fitness center, and that wellness center includes everything you can imagine, from mother's rooms to prayer rooms to anything that anyone would need from a wellness standpoint, as well as like just quiet rooms. And then in our fitness center, we have classes, so cycling, yoga, all of those different classes. It's a brand new facility, so it's absolutely gorgeous. And then we also have an art curator who will put on different types of art related content, where they're interactive, or they might just be presentations, but just getting people in the space. We've also invested in building out some of our turret space, so really nice natural light areas that are just coffee and tea, and you know, all this free coffee and tea stuff for our folks to come back in and get comfortable in the space.
Yeah, so it's, thank you guys for sharing. It is a very common thing to, in some cases, people feel like it's bribing to get people back. And I'm sure my soul over here that's 78, you look really big.
Temporary and routine thing that it won't force people back. It is the policies that you have to go back to and say, why are we in the office? And when we're in the office, do we feel cared for? I know that's a funny thing for me to say, because you guys are like, who's caring for me? It is really about changing habit. And over time, those habits, they'll be less concerned around where's the banana, where's the cookie, where's the bar. It is about connecting with people and finding out for leadership to be able to marry that with, which doesn't always happen for someone who's running multi-tenanted facilities, but for leadership to align it more with their performance. We're really seeing that is you're in the office or not, but not saying it when you're in the office you're not doing your job. It's how are you doing? And so I think Kevin and others mentioned they're wanting to be together because of more connection to their peers, social butterflies as well, connection to their peers to get things done faster because they're finding they're working longer when they're at home. They're not getting answers as quickly. And then from a mentorship perspective, you are seeing those that are new to the company or new to the profession are struggling dramatically. You look at that. So there is going to be more of that connection, and how that affects you guys are the amenities, the collaboration spaces, the in-person flexibility of the facility. Yeah, sorry. That's great.
That kind of thing in the collage, you know, when we're working from home, then when you're in the office, you can see who's doing that. And I noticed that some of the people who don't work very well from home needed training. So at least we did a little pilot and had everybody trained so they could not lose productivity at home. But I like being at home, but I can work in any environment. But I have all those things. I can school, I can do all these things on my break, so, but it's nice to have that in the office.
That's a great example. That's where HR comes in that communication and education is people are.
Firmware update, sorry about that.
Oh, they can't do that.
Okay, can't see it. I can't see my screen, but That's where that HR team becomes such an important part, because being able to let people know to work, to have equity in how they're working, it really is, they've got it on both ends of the screen or both ends of the table have to be able to do that and connect. And ultimately where trust and community are built, that power of proximity is important. It really helps people. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody else seeing that where training is important from the technology that you guys are having to put in place? That you're asked to work with IT, put all this technology in place, and yet people don't know how to use it? Or do they? You got, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, so we are seeing, just to kind of sum it up, we are seeing that this push for amenities, this push for technology, education, having you guys being change agents of the bigger process is really where things have been heading and helping to create a good playbook. A lot of you have shared some of the things in progress, and hopefully you can take that away as good tools for yourself. But know, probably at the top, when we have all these multi-purpose, multi-flexible, desire for amenities, desire to have people come back, communication can be one of your number one tools in the playbook, and engaging your greater consulting teams to help you early on and adapt along the way. So, Andy, if you want to add anything else?
No, absolutely. In terms of the amenities, I think what we're seeing is we are bringing elements of home to the office. And, I think, with the lounges and the fitness centers and other things, making that part of the overall work experience. I think that's the other aspect is, how are people experiencing work now? And, I think we have some projects here that, are really integrating, the functions that people see at home. Now, I actually do have a funny story. There was a real estate agent. He posted a picture. He was wearing an Apple glasses, right? And all the comments below that were, "Are you remoting home?" Right? And so his virtual world was his living room and whatnot, but he's physically in the office. But I think it's one of the signs, where I think we are, recognizing that, the experience at work and also the equality at work is at play here. And so hopefully today, we've been able to, address some of these learning objectives here in terms of, the goals and challenges that you're all facing, identifying the key people to engage early on for these conversations, identifying the data sets. I think that's been a great conversation in terms of understanding what you need to understand in terms of be effective overall. And that, there is no silver bullet, but I hopefully, today you're more prepared in terms of having that conversation with, the executives and C-level people saying, if we have to do this, then here are the steps that we need to take, and these are the people we need to engage to have a meaningful conversation overall.
Yeah, and know that the journey is long. Thank you for sharing those that are in the journey right now of change happens consistently over a period of time and things being repetitious. So learning, growing, and adapting is going to be an important part, and being able to share that with your management, senior leadership team, your leadership team within your offices really will help arm you guys being good change agents along the way, and hopefully a little less frustration with the complaints and/or concerns that you guys have to share. But thank you guys for sharing today and joining us early in the morning. Thank you.